on various things. And for many years, though, I worked for English Heritage, and I was the lead advisor for Stonehenge and Avebury World Heritage Site for a number of years as well. So I know this area well. And when I retired, I wanted to do more research in it. And so what this talk is about tonight is about some of that research, and indeed about the research that's taken place over the last 100 years. So, it's frozen up. Don't seem to be able to move it on. I could move it on earlier. There we are. So just a thank you for photograph and image credits to various people that you will see here, and particularly perhaps to Sharon Suter, who did some of the graphics that I'll be using tonight. Thank you also to Martin Barber, Brian Edwards and Tim Dorr for sourcing historical photographs and allowing me to use them. So what I'm going to talk about tonight is that I will introduce the subject, and I will give you a little bit of an explanation about some of the technical language that I may lapse into, but try not to be alarmed. I'm going to talk about the discovery of Woodhenge, the excavators, particularly the early excavators, the latest research, and talking about Woodhenge in its astronomical context, which is something that particularly interests me. And then thinking a little bit about how reconstructions have taken place over the last 100 years. And then finally, what do we think it was? So without further ado, just a reminder of where we are talking about. So this yellow line here is, which I hope you can see, it's yellow on my screen anyway, yellowy orange, is the outline of the Stonehenge part of the World Heritage Site, which is about 26 square kilometres. Stonehenge is more or less in the middle here, and all these other red lines and dots are barrows and other monuments like the Avenue, a hill fort here called Vespasian's Camp, a tiny little dot here, which is another henge. And then we have Woodhenge and Durrington Walls here. So it's a huge area, and it's absolutely full of very important prehistoric monuments, which is why it's a World Heritage Site. A quick reminder for those of you who may not know what Woodhenge is. It's a henge monument with timber rings inside it. Effectively, that's the best description. So it's a pretty classic henge. It has a ditch on the inside and a bank on the outside, which is kind of like the opposite of a defensive earthwork. And then it has 6 oval rings, concentric oval rings, of wooden posts within it. And today these are marked on site with these concrete posts, which David talked about earlier. And we have a reconstruction below. So just have that in your mind if you don't know anything about the site. In terms of technical language, a sight line is an imaginary line. This is the way I'm describing it, as viewed outwards from a site. So you're in a site and you're looking outwards towards a distant landscape feature or a target of some kind. And they are, in effect, views from a structure, a line of sight between 2 features, and they're functional. They require action. They require view, a person to view from it, to sight from it. So I sometimes use this to try and describe this. If you can imagine something like Stonehenge is Windsor Castle, if you've got your back to Windsor Castle and you're looking along the long walk up to this copper horse here, there's Windsor Castle in the background. This is a line of sight between these 2 structures, the copper horse and Windsor Castle. In this particular case, there happens to be a road along this sight line and alignment as well. But these is a line of sight between this and this. Another concept is axis of symmetry, which again is another imaginary line that divides a monument or something else into two broadly symmetrical halves, which I hope you can see fairly clearly here. So when I'm talking about an axis, it's this axis in the middle. And an alignment is, again, another imaginary straight line between an archaeological feature and a target. And the targets can be, a distant landmark. It could be a notch on I don't know, something like a tor or something in Dartmoor. Or it could be an astronomical event that meant something, not necessarily a view. And sight lines are always along alignments, but not all alignments are sight lines. For example, New Grange, the alignment looks inwards rather than outwards. Sight lines are always functional, alignments are not always functional. For those of you who don't know New Grange, this is a large tomb, and this is where the sun shines in through a gap in the structure inwards into this inner burial chamber. Another example of an alignment is the kind of the famous east-west orientation of churches. These are laid out along an alignment. So back to Woodhenge. I started thinking about this a year or two ago, and I suddenly realized that in fact it was 100 years last year, at the end of last year, when the monument was discovered. And this is the hero of the hour. This is squadron leader Gilbert Insall, who was pictured here in the First World War in 1916. He received a VC and an MC, and he was quite famous for his exploits and actions during the First World War, even then. He was only 21 when he won his VC for various actions when he was piloting his biplane. He was hit and he managed to repair the plane and escape again through enemy fire and so on. And as I say, he was pretty famous even back then, a kind of real boy's own hero. After his VC actions, he was later captured further on, and he, I think it was about 1915. Later on, he crashed or something, and he was taken prisoner. And he made various escape attempts, and his third escape attempt was successful. This is him in his escape gear, which he doesn't look that different to me. He was meant to be disguised, but he looks pretty similar to me. Anyway, he won the Military Cross for his escape. And here he is in 1917 being presented with his VC by King George. Again, you can see he was quite famous even in relatively, early in his career for his actions. Otherwise, they wouldn't have, been painting him and so on and so forth. Just to set the scene a little bit, Salisbury Plain was very important for early military aviation. If you go to the Stonehenge Visitor Centre, you will see which is this building here, which I'm pointing out with the cursor. There's a military cross there, which marks the graves of two early aviators who crashed. Well, not their grave, it's a memorial to two early aviators who unfortunately crashed and died there. So a lot of this area, including quite near Stonehenge itself, these were early grassy strips where people could take off and land from, and various aerodromes. Now, Gilbert Insel was a very experienced aviator, and he was training in the Salisbury Plain training area in 1925 using his Sopwith Snipe. And he was at about 2,000 feet when he saw Stonehenge. But when he was looking at Stonehenge, he saw something else about 2 miles away, which he saw a circle of white chalk marks inside a circle. And this was on the 12th of December 1925, which of course is 100 years and a couple of weeks ago. And he was kind of really intrigued by this, didn't seem to have a camera on him at the time. So 4 days later, he flew over it again and photographed this circle, including, it doesn't show so well here, but there's a circle of, he saw a circle inside this ring. He actually said, interestingly enough, it didn't look dissimilar from Stonehenge from the air, which I found quite an interesting remark. And he decided to keep an eye on this site. He obviously knew about the possibility of crop marks, and he decided to keep flying over it. And in June the following year, 1926, he went over what was a planted wheat field by then and took this quite famous photograph, which clearly shows the ring of the henge and these concentric rings within it. And he was really kind of astonished. He just, you know, it was something that he'd never seen before. And of course, not many people would have seen before because aviation was so early at this stage. I think you can see how accurate in a way that photograph was and what it actually showed. When you look at the excavation plan, you can really see the detail on that air photograph. It really is quite similar to the excavation plan. So, without further ado, really, he decided to show this photograph to the heritage world, the archaeologists at the time. And I guess two of the most famous archaeologists of that time in the Wiltshire area were Maud Cunnington and Ben Cunnington, who are a husband and wife team. And Ben was the curator, David's predecessor, in fact, the first curator of what was then Devizes Museum. And Maud was a well-known archaeologist in her own right, who'd actually got quite a few excavations under her belt by this stage. And they were really interested in this site. They were astonished. Here they are again, Maud and Ben. These are they in the centre. This is apparently a family photograph. These are also Cunnington family, but this is Maud and Ben. As I say, Maud was a well-known archaeologist by this stage, and had done many prehistoric excavations. She was particularly interested in prehistoric sites in this part of the country. Over the last few weeks or so, there have been some discoveries of her as a younger woman. Normally, the photograph that people see is this one here of Maud. That's the one that appears in most of the guidebooks and interpretation panels and such like. But here is another one of her as a younger woman, taken by a photographer in London, and another one, an older Maud, and she would have been an active archaeologist at this time. So it's nice to just see a different angle of her. I do wonder whether Maud and Ben were kind of interested. Other people have suggested this, that they kind of threw themselves more into their archaeological work because they had had an only child, their only son, their only child, had been killed, in fact, in the First World War, and he would have been a similar age to Gilbert Insel. And in fact, this is a photograph of David at the grave of Edward Cunnington, their son. It must have been quite a kind of poignant time, difficult to imagine when so many families had lost sons at this time, and Maud and Ben were one of them. So this is what they found. They dug the site, first of all, only kind of a few weeks after being shown the photograph by Gilbert Insall. They had gone to the landowner and kind of presumably after the crop was harvested, arranged that they could have some 5 weeks in August and September 1926. They also did a second season the following year. And what they found were 6 rings of post holes, concentric oval rings. They also found this inner ditch and the outer bank, and an entrance into the henge. And there is also a grave, which I don't know whether you can see here, which contained the skeleton of a 3-year-old child. And there was also another skeleton in the ditch. They labelled the rings in Maud's publication as A to F from the inside to the outside. So this is A, B, C, D, E, F. This is the outermost ring of posts, the A posts under excavation. And although this is not the kind of quality that one would do today, in fact, the excavations were pretty good, and the publication report is really, really good. A lot better than some of them today. One thing that they did notice when they were excavating is that these rings seem to be on an axis of symmetry. And they pretty quickly worked out that it's the same axis as at Stonehenge. And to kind of test it, they decided whether they could view the sunrise between the posts, as it were, and they worked this out for viewing it by viewing it themselves in the second season of excavations in 1927. And you can see that there's a sort of clear line through this marker here. This is a modern marker showing where the grave is, but out to the horizon there. And they decided after their excavations and the fact that they had published them in 1929, they obviously wanted to do something with the site. So they actually, as well as having funded the publication and the excavations themselves, they bought 2 acres of land from the landowner, and they decided to try and present the site to the public, and they decided on these low concrete markers which show the positions of the posts which they had excavated. And these were put in place, and the whole of the site given to the nation. It's a state monument on the provision that it would always remain free to the public. They also put in place some beautiful plaques, interpretation plaques, to show what the plan looked like. And the tops of the concrete bollards are coloured, and they correspond to the plan, which you can see here on the original concrete plinth. These are a replica, unfortunately, because the original ones, which are shown here in bronze, were stolen in 2015 and unfortunately have never been seen since. But English Heritage, who are in charge of the monument these days, have made replicas and put them on the original plinth. There have been later excavations. In 1970, you can just see here, if I can find my cursor, um, this trench here was put in place by Jeff Wainwright with the aim of trying to get dating material for the monument. And he discovered, fortunately for him, because it was quite a small trench in some ways, he discovered some antler picks in the ditch, which was very helpful. And then in 2006, the Stonehenge Riverside Project professor Josh Pollard excavated some parts which had already been excavated by Maud and indeed by Jeff, just to have another look to see whether things had been missed. So that was a 2006 excavation. They did find some interesting things. So I was interested in the date of the astronomical monument. I'm interested in archaeoastronomy, and it seemed to me that the thing that made this an astronomical monument were the rings. That wasn't the henge; it was the rings themselves, which have this clear axis of symmetry. So I wondered whether we could try and get a better date for the monument itself, both the bank and the ditch, the earthworks, and the timber rings. Jeff Wainwright's excavations had got an early carbon-14 date, and it was thought that the monument itself dated to around 2300 based on this small selection of early carbon-14 dates. Carbon-14 dating has become more refined and accurate since the 1970s, and we wondered whether there was any possibility of trying to get better and more precise dates. I also wondered whether we might be able to find a difference in the dates of the rings, whether there were any differences between them or not. So this is yours truly, choosing dating material. And here I must thank Wiltshire Museum for allowing us to select material for dating. And for Historic England, who funded the carbon-14 dating research. So thank you to both. I also need to pay tribute as well to Maud, because she and Ben actually collected charcoal fragments from the post holes, which are presumably, and as we later discovered, from the timbers themselves, but they didn't necessarily know that. They collected these charcoal fragments from all of the post holes, and they kept them. And they're in a lovely selection of kind of, old cigarette boxes and tins and what have you. Nicely repackaged nowadays, I hasten to add. But, these were kept for 90 years. Now, 90 years ago, 100 years ago, these just would not have normally been even recognised as important. So full marks to Maud and Ben for recognising their possible importance and keeping them. So the results were really interesting, I thought. It showed that the timber rings dated all of them to around 2600, but there was a clear separation in dates between the ring of timbers, the rings of timbers, and the ditch and the bank, which was around 2450 or 2400. And you can see the probability is very high that there is a separation between these two dates of around 200 years. As I say, the rings are all of the same date. I did wonder personally whether these two outer ones were of a different date, because the inner ones seemed to be more cohesive in plan, and Maud herself felt that the inner four rings were kind of really important. But they were all of the same date as far as we can tell from the dating material that we've got. There's also, we were able to kind of make some guesses, if you like, as to the longevity of the astronomical monument. The The posts were very different in diameters. Ring C had absolutely thumping great timbers. A and B less so, although still pretty substantial, as you can see from the earlier photograph I showed you. Um, but it would appear that, these slimmer posts would probably have started rotting after about 90 years or so. So perhaps this digging of the bank and ditch and this creation of a henge monument was almost closing down the astronomical monument, or it had fallen out of functionality, and now they were closing it down, or it was the end of that use of that part of the monument. Who knows? But that's a possibility. So, Woodhenge in its astronomical context, I'd like to just talk about some of the other monuments in the area that are similar. So Stonehenge and Avebury together are a single World Heritage Site. They're internationally important for their prehistoric monuments. And they do talk, they're important from the dates of around 3,700 and 1600. And their importance is for a number of reasons: that incredible design, things like Silbury Hill are unique its size and height for this part of the world. Stonehenge is extremely sophisticated in the way it's put together, and altogether, that, as well as this astronomical aspect, makes it really, really interesting. I should say that the astronomical aspects that I'm talking about, where you're using, or one's looking at precise alignments, this only seems to occur at Stonehenge and not at Avebury, which itself is very interesting. Why one and not the other? As I said before, the Stonehenge World Heritage Site is about 26 square kilometres, 400 scheduled monuments, and includes these sites with astronomical alignments. And the ones that we are able to pretty much demonstrate, there are 6 of them. There's Stonehenge itself, the stone elements of Stonehenge, the avenue, part of it anyway, Woodhenge, a ring of timber, not unlike Woodhenge, which is called the Southern Circle, and then an avenue to that Southern Circle. And then finally, there's a new post alignment, a post row at Larkhill. So everybody knows something about the astronomical importance of Woodhenge. This is one of the summer solstice celebrations at Stonehenge. People might not really understand what they're looking at, but the first person to really understand something in relation to the plan and what they were looking at was this man here, William Stukeley. He did a lot of investigations, surveying of scheduled monument, what are now scheduled monuments, these ancient monuments in the landscape around Wessex. And he recognized this solar alignment in 1720, published it in 1740. And the solar axis, this solstitial axis, is in orange. And in fact, there are 3 of them at Stonehenge, because you have the station stones here and here, which you can't see because they're under the under the diagram, but there are 2 of them left, one here and one here. And then you have the heel stone and its presumed companion. There's a stone hole there. The slaughter stone and its presumed companion. So you had paired stones there, paired stones there. And then the horseshoe axis of symmetry, it goes through the center, and at the tallest trilithon, if you were looking outwards, you would have seen the winter solstice sunset at that point. This is the Stonehenge Avenue, the part that is again on this alignment, this solstice alignment. Looking up it, you can see the heel stone here, which still survives. This road now has gone, thankfully, the A344. So you can see right up the avenue. This is the tallest trilith, and if you're looking out this way, this is the winter solstice sunset. I won't talk about the lunar alignments or possible lunar alignments and sight lines at Stonehenge. I am doing research on them with colleagues at the moment, but I won't talk about those further because they don't relate to Woodhenge. But we are researching them at the moment because we are in this major lunar standstill period, which happens every 19 years or so. So to see what these kind of look like in the landscape, this point here and this point here, this is where the sun in the winter solstice, there's a ridge here and the sun would sink behind it if you were viewing it from Stonehenge. Ditto, this is where the sun would come up as viewing it from Stonehenge. And this monument here, I don't know whether you can see it, this tiny little ring, this is Woodhenge. And this is the winter solstice sunset and the summer solstice sunrise. So you can see there are three parallel lines here. This is the new one I'll talk about in a minute. Just worth noting how far some of these go out into the landscape, way beyond the World Heritage Site, for example. So Durrington Walls and Woodhenge are two of the other areas, monuments, that have these astronomical importance. And Woodhenge is an enormous henge monument crossed by two roads today. This is the one that you can drive along today. Woodhenge we've already seen. Woodhenge here, the southern circle here with its avenue leading towards the River Avon. And just some more views of Woodhenge. So again, I'd just like to talk a little bit about the two lines, these that you may have seen earlier in the talk. One is by Professor Tom and one is by the Cunningtons. Tom and the Cunningtons both agree that there is a solstitial alignment. Professor Tom was a professor of engineering at Oxford, and he was very, very interested in megaliths, particularly in Britain. And he went around surveying them, and he also surveyed at Woodhenge, and he came up with a slightly different alignment to Maud. I think partly because he had actually surveyed the markers themselves, whereas Maud had used the archaeological plan of her excavations, and that explains probably the difference between them. I don't know whether you can see here, there's a little dot beside the grave. This is a central post which is now removed, which Tom also appeared to use in his surveying. And there is no evidence that were ever timber posts at that particular point, and that has now been taken down now by English Heritage, which is good because you can actually see the solstitial alignment much more clearly now it's been taken down because it blocked it. This is Tom's plan from 1967. He surveyed the markers, and Maud and Ben Cunnington's, well, Maud Cunnington's archaeological plan. And there you see when this was still in place, this central post, how that was kind of blocking the view. And now it's been removed, you can actually see this solstitial alignment. The Southern Circle is an interesting one. This was discovered by Jeff Wainwright. when he was doing a rescue excavation in the 1960s along the line of the road that people now travel on, over the monument today. And he discovered these timber rings, which are quite similar to Woodhenge. These days, of course, because there's a huge road embankment on the site and over where the monument was, we've had to do kind of digital reconstructions to try and work out how the monument functioned. And these timbers are placed in the correct position for the archaeological plan, through various excavations by Jeff Wainwright and the Stonehenge Riverside Project. And what it shows is if you were standing in the middle of the southern circle, you could see the sunrise looking down the avenue in the winter time. And if you were looking, it's the opposite way round from Stonehenge and Woodhenge. If you were looking up the avenue, you would see the midsummer sun sinking behind the timber monument. So these digital reconstructions have been quite useful to work out exactly how the monument probably functioned. Another new monument, which is discovered relatively recently, is just to the north of the World Heritage Site, and within an amazing discovery of a new causewayed enclosure. So this causewayed enclosure has an entrance. You can see the zooming in here, and much later, once the causewayed enclosure, which was much earlier, 3,700-ish, had been filled in, a row of posts were put in, and they too seem to be on the solstitial alignment, which is very interesting. These precise solstitial alignments are really, really unusual, and to get so many in such a concentrated area has been really a revelation, really, over the last few years. You can see here this post row, and the excavator, Matt Levers, goes out and kind of looks at the summer solstice and took this amazing photograph of the sun rising from along the alignment, that you could see the Larkhill post row would look out to this Sidbury Hill and see the sun rising over it. And there are other areas, as we've seen, in Britain and Ireland, that do have astronomical associations, perhaps most famously Newgrange, which I showed you earlier. But these precise arrangements are very, very unusual. Newgrange is quite a lot earlier than Stonehenge, timber, not the timber, the stone settings. Newgrange is about 3,200-ish. Stonehenge earthworks were about 3,000, but the stone settings are a very similar period to Woodhenge, between 2,500 and 2,600. So this is much, much earlier, perhaps even, 500, 600, 700 years earlier. And we've seen before this very precise architectural arrangement, which is really unusual. It has this opening above the entrance with this light box or this roof box, where allowing the sun to shine into this burial chamber. And for those of you who may know this, it's a really big thing in Ireland, and they allow a very few people to go into the centre of the monument at the winter solstice, and it's drawn by lottery, and I think there's only about 10 people that can go inside it because it's quite small, to see if they can see if they can witness this light coming into the burial chamber at the winter solstice. Just in terms of sightlines and heritage management today, this black and white photograph shows what this part of the Salisbury Plain looked like around 100 years ago. These are similar views, actually, of the same place. And you can see there are many more trees now today than there were. It was much more open 100 years ago. This was the time when they were doing their flying, of course, and taking off from these grassy fields. So sometimes these sight lines are not visible. I was talking about the road embankment over the Southern Circle. Jeff Wainwright excavated under this bit, and the Southern River, the Stonehenge Riverside project excavated the other bit here. You can see that, it's just not visible because there's this enormous road embankment which is blocking this sight line out to the horizon. If you go further back up the monument, this is the approximate position of the Southern Circle, and originally it would have looked out to this horizon here, but it's just not possible today. So trees and road embankments and roads all play their part in blocking the functionality of these monuments today. Again, this is why we've had to virtually reconstruct the Southern Circle in order to understand it. This is this midwinter sunrise. Now, Woodhenge can be reconstructed in a number of ways. If you think about the plan, those timber rings could be interpreted in a whole variety of ways. And in fact, that's sort of what's happened over the last 100 years or so. You can see that some of them have very much bigger diameters. The posts are much bigger. Some of them are much smaller. Maud herself thought that they were probably freestanding timbers. That's what she said in her excavation report in 1929. Possibly something like, totem poles or what have you. Something like this, perhaps. However, for most of the last 100 years, Woodhenge has been thought of as a building. And this was quite interesting to me when I was doing the research for this lecture. I hadn't realised how long it had been thought of as a building. And that's mainly because a very famous archaeologist, Stuart Piggott, who did not get on with Maud Cunnington at all, rather poo-pooed her ideas and said, no, it's not freestanding, it's almost certainly a building. And a later archaeologist, Chris Musson, said the same in 1971. So this is a reconstruction which dates to around 1985 by English Heritage, now in the Historic England archives. And you can see that the ring C, which would have been the biggest posts, would have supported the apex of this really rather strange donut-shaped kind of building. And the smaller timbers were supporting the lower elements of the roof. And you have the henge here. The views that I've found, the interpretation designs that I've found, they seem to start changing when the first Stonehenge Riverside, the Stonehenge Visitor Centre project started in the mid-2000s. There seemed to be a re-evaluation of what it might be looking like at that point. So this was a new way of looking at it. Was it a linteled monument like Stonehenge? So timber posts, open, not a building, but had these kind of ring beams made out of wood. This reconstruction dates to 2004. But here's another one by the same artist. I think it's the same artist, dating to 3 years later. Again, showing some of them may have been freestanding, some of them were linteled. But they also were hedging their bets. Here it is still as a building, and again an air view of it as a building. So these could be viewed as pairs, as an alternative explanation. I mean, nobody can tell which is kind of right and which is wrong, definitely, because we just don't have that evidence. But these are alternative explanations. And here again, you can see the pair of air images as alternate visions. The visitor centre that now exists was the second Stonehenge Visitor Centre project. The Stonehenge Visitor Centre opened in late 2013, and there was a further re-evaluation, it seems, of what the monument may have looked like. And that is the one that I've been showing earlier, sort of back to Maud's interpretation of it as freestanding timbers. And I would say that if our understanding of the monument as an astronomical monument, as a functional astronomical monument, is right, then it would have been very difficult to use it as to use the astronomy as, you know, if it was a building, because you just wouldn't have been able to see through it in the same way. It would have been possible with the lintels, but as a functional monument, if that's how it was designed, then it would have had to have been freestanding timbers, whatever they looked like. I found this was quite an interesting new interpretation. Two people have suggested this, and this is a very recent reconstruction with timbers being upended and the roots showing. And this is based on archaeological evidence, Henge in Norfolk, where there was an inverted timber ring. The central post was inverted like this. So, you know, it's something to think about. It's not something that many people had thought about before. I found it quite interesting. So, what is Woodhenge? What does it mean? Why do people create these monuments in this way? Why would you incorporate astronomy into the design of these buildings? Were they calendars? Were they there to worship the sun? Was there a link between death and the solstices? And just looking a little bit around the world, Stonehenge is often called a calendar. Now, to me, this is a calendar. This is Chanquillo in Peru, and it has these amazing kind of stone towers along this ridge, and you have an observing point, and you can view the sun changing from month to month as they go into the gaps between the towers. And you go from June to December, and that is something that you could regard as a calendar, because it appears to be trying to mark off dates in a way that is quite precise. Other sorts of calendars relate to things that might be markers for ceremonies or agriculture, or just a cosmological direction marker. So this was recorded in Arizona in 1890, where the Hopi used notches in the horizons and as viewed from a fixed viewing point, which then allowed them to plant their sweet corn when the sun sets or the sunrise has got to that particular part of the horizon. But for us, Woodhenge and indeed Stonehenge only seems to have two kind of main dates. And these dates would themselves be around 5 days or so, because the sun would be very difficult to see any changes in that period where it appears still on the horizon. Solstice means sun still. The sun is still at that point before it goes north or south again in that pendulum action along the horizon. So there are only really two dates. Is that really a calendar? I don't think so. And what about sun worship? Were they worshipping the sun itself? Um, we know that a lot of ancient cultures actually worship the sun, and with good reason, because obviously the sun is really important for agriculture and heat and light and all of those things. The ancient Egyptians worshipped Ra, and we have records of that on their hieroglyphs and so on. That definitely was sun worship. But it's very difficult, because we don't have any written records in prehistory at this time, to say that that might be something similar to what's going on at Woodhenge or Stonehenge. What we do have is that we can see that they seem to be sighting the sun at solstices, and that doesn't necessarily mean they were worshipping the sun itself. We can't tell, but the solstices themselves seem to be a key thing. Again, Newgrange, again, solstices. That is what that was incorporated into the architecture of that tomb. And again, a link between solstices and death is seeming to become apparent. Stonehenge, for example, is a very large cremation cemetery. These Aubrey holes, which are this ring here, were full of cremated bones dating from around 3000 to around 2500. So you have a link between death and solstices. At Woodhenge, you've got the central grave, which is in the same position as the altar stone at Stonehenge. You also have cremations in the timber rings, and you have also a skeleton and things in the ditch. There is an association with death with these astronomical monuments. It is very difficult to understand what this might mean, but it is, tempting to think that the solstice means the death of one part of the year, when particularly the winter solstice, which archaeologists are now thinking is the most important thing at Stonehenge and perhaps at Woodhenge as well. So when the sun sinks behind the horizon at midwinter, one knows that there is going to be new life coming, and there is a link between the rebirth, perhaps, of the new year, the death of the old year, and that new life is around the corner. And there may be a link between life and rebirth and the death, which is associated with these monuments, a link between rebirth and death and life. Very, very difficult to say, obviously, but this is a possibility that's worth thinking about. And this is just a photograph that I took actually on the day of its discovery, 100 years to the day. It's a good thing that he wasn't flying over it on weather like this, because it was a miserable day on the 12th of December at the end of last year. And I don't think he would have seen very much, to be honest, because it was absolutely horrible. But I just thought it'd be nice to take a photograph to mark its 100th birthday, so to speak. We have talked, Clive and myself, about some of these concepts in our book. There's a link at the bottom there, and there is a discount if you use that particular website. So if you're interested in some of these concepts, I've used some of the graphics in this talk. There's much more in that book. And with that, I'll wish you a slightly belated Happy New Year and thank you for listening.
Fantastic, Amanda. Thank you so much. Really interesting. Lots of really detailed information there for people to get their teeth into, not least of whom is Simon, who was first on the list with a question. I think you may know Simon. Um, so he's certainly got one to test you with. And,
Oh, Simon.
and Simon says there's a natural desire to focus on the six oval rings, but there are additional black-topped post hole markers outside the bank towards the northeast. These appear to be oriented north east west, which is curious. Have you any comment about them?
Well, you're absolutely right. Um, there are a number of markers. If you go out onto the site today, there are the six rings, but there are other rings. And originally, Maud laid those out in red concrete, and they had black tops. It's actually quite difficult to distinguish the red concrete, which still exists, from the kind of grey concrete, because these posts are 100 years old and they're lichen covered and so on and so forth. Some of the blacktop uh, timbers do seem to be in an alignment. Maud certainly thought that at least a couple of them may have been marking out posts for the monument, and they do seem to be on the solstitial alignment. I haven't got the ones that you're thinking of in mind, Simon. It's difficult to think about it without a plan, but it certainly I think that some of those ones could be earlier and they could have alignments. And I'd like to go and have another look at the plan myself and see exactly which ones you're talking about and see what I think about them. But yeah, it's certainly a possibility.
Okay, thanks. And Simon says we'll have to meet up sometime and have a look.
Sounds good.
Okay, and H. Cochrane says, do we know any more about the 3-year-old child?
No, we don't. And that's because, unfortunately, there are no. This is one area I would be critical of the publication report. There's no photographs of the skeleton. And although there was a bone report, and Maud said that she thought that the skull of the child had been split in two. I've asked bone specialists today, and this was a kind of common trope that people thought in the early part of the 20th century, that when you had a very early skull and it had fallen apart because the bones hadn't fused because the child was so young, that they often thought it was a deliberate killing. Um, it's equally likely, or perhaps more likely, that the skull hadn't fused and fell apart. Unfortunately, we can't tell anything. The bones have disappeared. We have no idea where they were. They seem to have got lost in the Second World War. And there is neither a drawing nor a photograph. We only have the written bone report, which talks about it being a young child. You wouldn't have been able to sext it at that age anyway, so we don't know whether it was a boy or a girl. But Maud said that the skull was in pieces.
And Claire has asked a related question. She says, has it been dated? And
No,
you've
because
sort of
we can't.
answered that because it's
No,
gone.
sadly, believe me, if we'd got the bones, we would have loved to have done that.
Yeah, I think it was bombed in the Natural History Museum store during the Second World War. So it's
Yeah,
gone. Yeah.
that's it. It's whether there's a possibility, because Mike Pitts did find some things that were moved from the Natural History Museum and has managed to track some things down. But at the moment, they're missing. Perhaps they exist somewhere, but we just it's very unlikely.
And Nicholas and Ray have asked sort of related questions, which is Nicholas has said, you mentioned modern sightlines are interrupted by trees and rather blocked. Does this mean the landscape was actually more open than present?
I mean, that's a really interesting question because that then does suppose that in prehistory, at least some of those sight lines were clear of trees. Um, there is starting to be environmental evidence that, in fact, some parts of southern Britain didn't ever fully recover its tree cover after the last ice age. So, although much of the island then developed its natural forested aspect, some parts seem to have never properly regenerated after 12,000 BC. And these areas are around the kind of chalk. There's evidence that there isn't a proper tree cover in places like Cranbourne Chase, around Stonehenge, around Avebury, around these kind of chalky areas. And that may have been why they decided to build some of these earliest monuments in these areas, not least because they didn't have to chop a lot of trees down in the first place, but because they were already open, but also so that they had these open vistas, which were perhaps already kept down by deer or when they started bringing in the Neolithic, their grazing animals would have maintained them as cleared. So it is possible, it is likely that some of the horizons and things were clear and perhaps more akin to perhaps not quite as clear as that photograph I showed of how the area was in the early 20th century, which was really clear. I'm sure there would have been more scrub and more clumps of trees here and there, but I think it could have been quite open.
I know Mike Allen says it was open looking at the snail and sort of other environmental evidence, and there's some evidence again from the peat deposits in the Avon Valley that it's open.
Yeah, which is
And
really unusual.
mm,
I mean, it's not what people expect.
no, no. Maria has said, would the Timdor upside down tree root idea be unstable, too heavy?
That's an interesting one. It certainly is. If you look at Seahenge, that is a much lower monument, and in terms of that is upside down, and that definitely existed because we've got that as preserved as a waterlogged monument, so to speak. But in that case, it is true that the trunk of the tree was much smaller, and the roots were much nearer the ground. So yes, it's you'd have to have that stability to take into account. At Seahenge, they managed it because the roots were quite near the ground.
Of course, we don't know how high the posts were at
No, we
Woodhenge.
don't.
So
No, we don't.
it's yeah. Okay, and Sarah has said, is it possible to use subtle variations in the actual position of the solstices to work out when the monuments were laid out?
Um, I think not. I'm not an astronomer, but I think although we can tell the general position changing, because it does change, it's changed so little, relatively speaking. So I think that I'm right in saying that the sun is about a sun's diameter or half a sun's diameter different from 2,500. So it would be impossible to, because it's so close to how it is to modern day, it wouldn't really be possible because it's very similar. Not the same, but too similar to be able to kind of get that kind of dating.
Simon, your mate, has said that Norman Lockyer used that approach for Stonehenge to saying there's a 1 degree drift in 4,500 years.
Yeah. Yeah. So
So
it's
as you
it's not really wide enough difference to be able to date the monuments.
because you've got to assume to do that, you've got to assume real precision in
Yeah.
laying out the line. And of course, you don't know whether you're looking at sort of the left-hand side of a post or the right-hand side or the top.
Yeah.
because the post is only 3 feet high, that's easy. You might have a even something on top of the post, but if it's 12 foot high,
I think Lockyer
that
actually,
variation is
I
so
I
broad.
think it was Lockyer who tried to actually date Stonehenge using that, and he did come up with a prehistoric date, but it
Yeah.
wasn't right.
I seem to remember 1200
Yeah,
BC.
it was not, yeah, it was far too early.
Yeah.
What
Late.
late. It was far too early. Late, sorry, compared to how it was. It was much nearer it was much nearer.
Yeah. Elizabeth has said if it was roofed over, would there been some sort of material evidence in the same way as the charcoal? And if it was roof, there could have been openings in to allow the sight lines to happen.
I mean, that is a possibility, I guess, if it was two halves of a, if you can imagine a kind of polo mint split in two type thing, with a line going down it. That would be a possibility to make it functional. However, in terms of do we have any evidence, the answer is no. If there was, say, a thatched roof or something like that, that has long since disappeared, and there's no evidence for it.
Expect any to survive. No.
Yeah. In fact, there's no evidence at all. And of course, it was ploughed, but there's no evidence for any flooring. I'm just thinking for example, that Mike Parker Pearson, he did find chalk floors for his houses just a few hundred meters away. The houses, obviously, they were smaller, but the chalk floors had survived. There's no evidence of any flooring surviving. But as I say, this area was ploughed, so it's difficult.
Usually the centre of Durrington Walls has never been ploughed. I could be wrong, but I think that's another reason that the floors survived there, if I remember rightly.
Yeah, this I think where he was excavating it was pasture, but Woodhenge has definitely been ploughed
Mm,
as we've seen. That's how it was discovered.
yeah. Mike has said, is the skeleton in the ditch of the same age or later? So has that been dated?
That's a very interesting question, and the answer is we don't know. And that's under discussion. We don't know. It's not dated, but it is in the bottom of the ditch and it does look original. So, for example, you can imagine in a filled in ditch, which was filled in prehistory, if it was an Anglo-Saxon um, grave, you would have seen that going into the prehistoric layers. There's no evidence that it was dug from the top. It does seem to be original to the monument.
Two related questions about the timber. Do we know what the timber was and any idea where it might have come from?
We do know that it was oak, and we don't know where it came from. But these would have been chunky bits of timber, and they might have had to come from some distance in the same way that Stonehenge's stones came from some distance. Or perhaps there were still oaks, say, in the river valleys around the area.
But I seem to remember there's no very little tree pollen from samples taken in the river valley, so it
Yeah,
would have probably come from some distance.
yeah,
But
yeah,
that could be 3 or 4 miles, not necessarily from
yeah,
South Wales, from
yes.
Pembrokeshire.
Or even not the Marlborough Downs, you know.
Yeah, it could be a lot closer.
Yeah, it could be closer.
And sticking with the charcoal, Ray says, you mentioned charcoal, was it burnt down?
That's a really interesting question. I think it's m more likely that this seemed to be charred stuff that was perhaps the timbers had been kind of charred in order to kind of make them harder. Like a fire, sometimes you get fire hardened spears and things like that, which make them harder and stronger. and may have preserved them a bit longer in the ground. Because obviously, if you put timbers into the ground in our climate, they do rot. But if they were burnt a little bit, it gives it a bit more stability and longevity. So we think it wasn't necessarily burnt down, but it was perhaps burnt on the outside of the timbers to make it stronger.
Just two last questions, because I think it's just about enough. Then that'll give enough time for people to make a cuppa before digging for Britain. Belinda has said, essentially, any idea how many people it would have taken
Oh.
to erect the posts, to erect Stonehenge, Woodhenge?
No, I don't know. I'm afraid I haven't done any calculations. I'm not an engineer, but they would have had to have had very good rope technology. It would have been a major endeavor. We know that some of these timbers, we don't know exactly how tall they were, but we do know they were tall because they've actually got ramps in order to erect them, which um, tells you that they were really high. So I think it would be very interesting. It would have been quite an endeavor to, source the trees, to cut them down, to transport them, to, erect them. Nothing like the amount of effort it would have taken for Stonehenge. So because shaping those stones would have taken a huge amount of time.
Comment from Simon before the last question, which is in southwest of the States, Kiva monuments make use of windows for alignments.
Yeah, sorry, what's just read the question again?
In southwest United States,
Yep,
Kiva monuments,
yep,
Kiva
yeah.
monuments make use of windows for alignment. So it's a comment
Yes,
rather than a
yeah,
question.
yeah, yeah, that's true. I was lucky enough to go to to New Mexico and to Colorado and Arizona as well. And I do know of those and the astronomical alignments there. So that is a possibility. You could have had a gap in in the building that may have allowed that, or perhaps even, doorways, entrances, large entrances either end may have allowed a viewing through. So that is another possibility. Quite an interesting one, yeah.
And the last question is from Trevor. Has anyone ever thought about the practicality of putting lintels onto timber posts?
Um, Only in as much as the Stonehenge ones seem to use woodworking joints. So you have these tongue and groove joints in stone at Stonehenge and mortise and tenon joints again at Stonehenge, but in stone. And so part of, I think, the presumption about Woodhenge being a precursor to Stonehenge, which was Maud's idea, was that they kind of tried it out in timber first and then did it in stone. But these are woodworking joints at Stonehenge, and they would have been possible at Woodhenge as well, and in timber.
However, of course, the posts are almost certainly circular, not sort of oblong in section as the
Yeah,
stones are. So
yeah. It
that
wouldn't
would
have
have been
been
interesting.
wouldn't have been quite the same because they
Mm.
did manage to curve the lintels at Stonehenge to make that ring beam all around the outer sarsen circle. And that it would have been less easy. It would have been more a hexagonal or zigzaggy kind, series of straight lines. But it would have been possible, I think.
So with that, thank you so much, Amanda. We talk about a lot of questions. That was 18 altogether. It
Okay.
really, really kept you on your toes. I'm absolutely fascinated. Huge thanks. Thank you for everyone for coming, and see you again when we do another talk. We don't have any planned just yet, but just to remind you, we've got our conference, archaeology conference, coming up at the end of March. So thanks everyone, and good night. Just
Thank
time
you.
for you to make a cuppa before digging for Britain.
Thank you very much.
Good night, everyone.